A French department and overseas territory, Martinique is right in the heart of the Caribbean. Its nickname, the Island of Flowers, reflects the island's diversity. Situated 7,000 kilometers from mainland France and 2,900 kilometers from North America, Martinique is bordered by the Caribbean Sea on the west and the Atlantic Ocean on the east. Martinique looks like a postcard with its fine sand beaches and its inland luxuriance. With an area of 1,080 square kilometers, the island measures 80 kilometers at its longest point by 39 kilometers at its widest. The island has a population of about 415,000. The neighboring islands to Martinique are Dominica, which is 25 kilometers to the north, Guadeloupe, 120 kilometers to the north, and St. Lucia, 37 kilometers to the south. It's thought to owe its name to Christopher Columbus, the first European to discover it on June the 15th, 1502. The island was then called Madanin, Madiana, or Mantinino by its inhabitants, the Calinas, who were said to have spoken of a mythical island known to the Tainos people of Hispaniola. The name evolved with different pronunciations to Madinina, the Island of Flowers, Madiana, Martinique, and finally, through the influence of its neighboring island, Dominica, the name became Martinique. In Martinique, you have the sky, the sun, and the sea. But there are also fields of sugarcane, forest paths, villages in the middle of nowhere, fantastic gardens, and many other marvels. Martinique, Courage Island, resists cyclones as well as earthquakes. Even though everyone remembers Hurricane Dean, the island has since become green and vibrant again. Created in 1658 when the settlers chased the last remaining Caribs from the northeast coast of Martinique, Sainte-Marie grew out of Font Saint-Jacques, a monastic house. Sainte-Marie is a pivotal point between the north and southeast of the island and stretches over 4,456 hectares. Known as the cradle of Martinican traditions, Sainte-Marie proudly boasts a heritage developed through the crossbreeding of its people. Sainte-Marie means nature, sea, Creole cooking, storytelling, tradition, and belé dancing. Belé, also called bel air, the Frenchifying of a Creole word, is a musical style in which a singer leads the music in a strong voice, while the dialogue develops between the dancers and the tambouiller, the drum player. Here, we are at the House of Belé, which was founded in Sainte-Marie in February 2003. Today, we see many former performers who grew up here in the tradition of Belé. It was to bring people like them out of the shadows and give them the place they deserve that the House of Belé was created.
So this evening, the House of Belé is welcoming the Belé Associations of Martinique for a little Belé time. And this Belé time is reserved for beginners. That means people who've been dancing a year or two, no more. This evening is just for them, with drumming, with dancing, and with tibois. Belé is a dance in Martinique that comes from our slavery period. So it's a legacy from Africa, with various European contributions. So you have singers, the drum, tibois, dancers, and déyé voices that we call choruses. These are songs that are very, very old, because the masters of Bélé are between 80 and 90 years of age. So they're the trustees of this tradition. They're the oldest in Martinique, and they're all originally from Sainte-Marie. In Bélé, the singing is in Creole, only in Creole. So you have several different rhythms in Bélé. You have 7 rhythms. You have Bélia, you have Grand Bélé, Pitché Bélé, Bigin Bélé, Cho Bélé. You have Linkley dances. These are dances that are performed afterwards, that are performed in line. There's the Mabelo, the Canigwe, the Benezwe, the Tingbang, and the Sibele. You also have what we call Danmyé, which is a combat dance. Usually Danmyé is performed in the early part of the evening. Then you have the Bélé dances, and then the Linkley dances. So, depending on where you live or where you're living at the moment, you choose an association. We all have the same customs, where women wear a t-shirt, a skirt, a petticoat, and the scarf. We dance barefoot. Men wear loose clothing for ease of movement. And especially, we dance with our knees bent. We don't dance upright. We dance knees bent so our knees are protected. And that also comes from the field dances.
The songs, as well as their purpose of giving a rhythm to work, were a means of recounting the island's history, as well as the communities and the neighborhoods. Recounting with irony the differences between colonizers and also the woes of a friend or of a foreman and many other such things. The issue of Bélé's origin raises a real controversy related to Martinique's turbulent past. The House of Bélé's objectives are to honor the elders, trustees of an ancestral tradition, to put these elders into contact with the rest of the Martinican and foreign populations, and to immortalize this tradition so that future generations can share in it. Martinique produces mainly rum from sugarcane. This production has, since 1996, been labeled AOC, Appellation d'Origine Contrôlée Martinique. This label attests to its great quality, to the special method of production, and to the aging of Martinican cane rum. Production of AOC cane rum represents 21% of the agricultural added value for the Department of Martinique. The rum is mainly exported to mainland France. It has long been appreciated for its great aromatic depth, its roundness, and its creaminess in the mouth. Here we're at the De Paz plantation, a domain operating since 1645, acquired by Martinique's first governor, Jacques Diel du Parquet. The farm, called at the time La Montagne, stretched from the coast to the foot of Mount Pelée. A quarter of a century later, the property had 2 sugar plants, a water mill, an ox-driven mill, and 125 hectares of cane. During the Enlightenment, La Montagne changed hands several times before being purchased by the Pères, settlers originally from Bordeaux, established at Basse-Pointe. One of the daughters married Joseph Pécoul, then a modest lawyer from Aix-en-Provence. The Pécouls remained in control of the operation for more than 100 years, from 1810 to 1917, giving their name to the property that was then called at that time Pécoul, La Montagne. In 1922, Victor de Paz started to build the huge chateau based on the model and the ruins of the one he had spent his childhood in, Château Périnel. This enormous property was home to his 11 children, of whom the 3 eldest sons, Raoul, Henri, then André, would one by one take over the reins of their father's business, which they held till 1989. That year, the distillery and 5 hectares of land were bought by the French group Bardinet, today called La Martiniquaise. Awarded the gold medal at the Concours Général de Paris in 2008, then silver medal in 2009, De Paz Plantation Old Rum ages 3 years in the little oak barrels that give it a beautiful aromatic richness. The nose of this rum has a complex aromatic depth, a mixture of fine notes of vanilla, coconut, chocolate, prunes, candied fruits, cocoa, cinnamon, nutmeg, coffee, all brought out by the finesse and the depth of the wood. De Paz Plantation Old Rum is a rum with character. They say it makes you want to go back for more. Martinique is of volcanic origin. It's part of the archipelago of the Lesser Antilles. It has a mountainous relief in the north and in the west, marked by 2 mountains, Mount Pelée, a still active volcano that culminates at 1,397 meters, and by the Piton du Carbet that rise to 1,120 meters. The south of the island is, on the other hand, made up of limestone or volcanic hills between 300 and 500 meters high. Because of these differences in altitude, the north is much more humid than the south of the island, which is very wooded. Martinique has a way of coupling everything and its opposite: sugar and rum, the rain and the sun, the trade winds and cyclones, volcanoes and rivers, and many other things. Like the heavenly vegetation that looks like a jungle. And only a few kilometers away, this superb fine sand beach. It's almost as simple as turning your head from side to side to see one or the other. The Catholic religion is represented in every village by the presence of churches and affiliated institutions, as well as by the island's 2 cathedrals. Religious diversity is visible, and sects like the Jehovah's Witnesses are as popular as Voodoo, animism, and Catholicism. Religion is part of daily life for Martinicans, giving a spiritual foundation to every gesture, event, or ceremony. Note that all religious celebrations, funerals, pilgrimages, Christmas, are always high in color, with a feeling of optimism and joy. The main Martinican martial art, Danmyé or Ladja, was born in the time of slavery. The slaves who came from Senegal and elsewhere, passing through Gorée Island, created a combat art inspired by the initiation ceremony Ngolo that symbolizes the passage from the world of adolescence to the adult world, and that consisted in a confrontation in the form of a fight. The main source of inspiration seems to be the lamb, Senegalese wrestling. It should be noted that other combat dances have their roots in Africa, like in La Réunion, the croche or morangue, or in Brazil, the capoeira.
Danmyé is a Martinican combat art, which is done, as you have seen, to the rhythm of a drum and the tibois. There's a singer and responders. So the answers are given all the time, and so usually there are two fighters. Danmyé is an art of total combat, which is to say, there are kicks, as well as punches, wrestling, but also all types of dodging, blocking. So all that has been part of Danmyé. But not everything today is part of the sport. Up until around the 40s to the 60s, there was Danmyé. There was sometimes even deaths in Danmyé because everything was allowed. Danmyé did have rules, but it was banned at a certain point. It's true that it's becoming more and more popular as it is more accepted. At training sessions, there are more and more people. It's true that at the moment, we don't have enough people taking it up. You have to have a lot of ability to practice Danmyé. But it can be practiced at different levels. By that I mean, we do it according to the abilities of each person. What's so interesting in Danmyé is the relationship between the music and the combat. It's very strong. Which is to say that when you're doing Danmyé and you have the music playing behind you, it's something else. And it's really something very important.
In the old days, dance was the art of moving. There used to be combat dances. And when you were dancing, you were a master in the art of dodging, of attacking, and moving about. So dance is not just an embellishment. It's a gesture that's part of the combat, and that serves the combat. It's a huge job, because the elders here don't just give it to you casually. They give it to you with their hearts. In that way, they are respectable and honorable people, because the elders who have given us this technique have never asked us for a penny. However, they have given it to us so that we can go on to perfect stick combat. There used to be very important stick rituals like there were in France. Duels really existed. People passed by, they had a problem with you, and out came the sticks. The stick has a history in the slave struggle. Slaves went to battle with sticks, rakes, cutlasses, tridents, forks, what have you, whatever came to hand. Once, there was a master who taught his pupil to use the stick. Well, the pupil very quickly became as adept as the master. He had taught him the techniques, the game, the dance. And then one day, the pupil is standing in front of him saying, "Master, I want to do combat with you." And he says, "I'm the one who taught you this. How can you ask me? It's not proper." And the man says, "Master, I'll never be satisfied with myself unless I can beat you one day." The master looks at him and says, "Okay, I'll meet you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock in such and such a place. Come alone." The guy says okay, he would come. The master arrives at 5 o'clock in the morning, if it isn't 4:30, just so he's there before the guy. So when the fellow arrives, the master is waiting for him, stick in hand. The guy comes up to him and says, "Master, I'm here." The master says, "Yes, but there's a problem." And the guy says, "What problem, master? I don't see a problem." The master says, "I told you to come alone." And he makes as if to look behind him. So the guy turns around because he knows he has come alone. And right then, he's hit with a stick and disarmed. And the master says to him, "I taught you a lot of things, but I hadn't taught you that one yet, craftiness in the game." There you are. I think we all love life at a certain level, even if it becomes very difficult on this planet. But all of us, we all love life. The elders still had this respect for life. Practicing the stick is still practicing. It makes a man or a woman a little more sure of themselves. A stick can disarm a knife. It can disarm a cutlass. It can disarm a saber when it's done properly. It's an art because it teaches us so many things about life, about dance, about movement, about the art of combat. Above all, it is an art.
Note that Danmyé developed only in Martinique because it was one of the last acts of marronage that allowed the West Indian man to affirm his identity by fighting against European cultural domination. After each training session, stretching exercises are very important so that the participants' muscles can get over their athletic emotion. And when they've finished, everybody applauds, congratulating each other on a successful session. Martinique is called the Island of Flowers, or Madinina, because you will discover an impressive variety of flowers there, several hundreds in fact. The Island of Flowers enjoys a tropical climate favorable to the development of West Indian flora. To mention just a few, the anthurium, the porcelain rose, Caribbean heliconia, the bird of paradise, the queen of Malaysia, and there are many others, each one more beautiful than the next. Every Martinican flower name is a poem in itself. The banana is a recent product in the West Indies, born in around 1928. It has always been one of the staple foods for the population. The positive image it has, opposed to sugarcane, which is associated with slavery, has helped encourage the development of small plantations. Rapidly, the banana took over from sugarcane on the best farmlands. The blue film around the bananas is meant to protect the fruit from airplane sulfate emissions. It will soon be replaced by a white film which promotes the ripening of the fruit. Banana crops cover 8,300 hectares in Martinique. That's 84% of useful farmlands, shared between 1,275 farms. The banana tree has always been a part of the Martinican landscape, but it wasn't until the 20th century that it took on such economic importance. Sugarcane represents to the people of Martinique the troubles of slavery in the past, an important contribution to the value produced on the island, and consequently an incarnation of the Martinican soul. Sugarcane was introduced to Martinique, like in the rest of the Antilles, in the 1640s, so as to establish a profitable crop that was able to supply Europe with sugar. Sugarcane is the second most important crop in Martinique after the banana, with 4,150 hectares, which is 13.7% of useful arable land. In 2009, Martinique produced over 220,000 tons of cane, of which 40% was used for the production of sugar in the Galion factory. The rest was used for the production of cane rum. Markets are an integral part of Martinican life. A place of living and exchange for everyone, they are ideal for observing and getting acquainted with the local population, becoming familiar with the local fruits and vegetables, getting drunk on the smells, the flavors, and the exotic colors of Martinique. The pit is a little arena in which cockfights take place, but it's also a structure surrounded with steps for the social exchange that gravitates to this strange and special world. Introduced by the Spanish, cockfighting has become a true Martinican passion. It manages to provide a living for many people in Martinique. The season begins in April and ends around December, when the roosters are growing new feathers and the heat prevents the champions from fighting. The roosters are wild, domesticated and crossbred with roosters from India. Before the fighting season, the birds are prepared, trained like top athletes, and fed with recipes that are kept quite secret. After the weigh-in, the first birds are brought into the center of the arena to be prepared. The feathers have been trimmed. At 10 to 12 months of age, the cock's comb is removed and its barbs are cut. The spurs are left intact, but when they fight, long extensions are added to the bird's own, glued on with preheated wax, giving the spur a rather impressive length. This makes it possible to fix, regulate, and adjust its position. Placing them involves a whole procedure requiring some expertise. A fight can last from a few seconds to several minutes. Each match sees two opponents in the ring, usually of the same weight. On the board, in front of the numbers corresponding to the boxes the cocks are kept in, you sometimes see the letter B. This means that the animal is one-eyed, that it lost an eye in a fight or during training. The day of a fight, bets are placed in an atmosphere of clamorous excitement. Large sums of money are sometimes at stake. The base price for a bird without a good reputation can be from 150 to 200 euros. Taking part in a fight costs the cock breeder between 2,000 and 6,000 euros. The match is over when one of the two opponents is on the ground and can't get up within the count of 40 seconds. The match can also end if one of the cocks refuses to fight, or if one of the owners feels his bird is not fit to continue and decides to stop the fight. Small breeders have an average of 50 cocks, of which 5 or 6 have the combative qualities that will allow them to fight. Practicing Ladja is a real art of living that today children can learn from a very young age. Because in the beginning, as it was too violent, it was a sport for adults only. Over time, it became more and more pedagogical. Children become really fulfilled practicing this martial art.
Children have always been interested in Ladja. It was just that they weren't allowed to do it. But in fact, when you speak of an art of living, you have to remember that in our society, the way things are organized, a young person will come to Ladja naturally. Because we have all different types of games that used to be played in the country or in school playgrounds, like Zouel, the game Zouel. That's sort of similar to cops and robbers, or any game where the point is to not get caught. So you use all possible means. We work on dodging, on acrobatics. We work on observation. And games like that are already starting off points for training young people who will eventually end up doing Ladja. So they'll watch their elders and see how they do it. But he or she already has a base to build on. That wasn't all organized, like today in schools where very specific exercises are given. We're going to adapt our way of teaching to the children. Before it was much less organized, but it happened anyway. Then, at another level of practice, yes, there was training involved. Once you were initiated, there were majors who had 2 or 3 apprentices who they trained and to whom they gave different types of exercises or training. So it was always in relation either to the work or to the stroke of a cane. Go to the river, potato head. Anyway, they knew exactly what to do to develop flexibility, to build up muscles. It's a far cry from the gym with a coach and weights, but they knew exactly what they were doing. So the whole process of initiation begins in childhood, but children couldn't be part of Ladja. It was for adults, because it was quite violent. First of all, I wouldn't even call Ladja a sport. I mean, there's an undeniable sports aspect to it, but it's really an art of living which is common to all martial arts throughout the world. Be it at a level of samurais, or that of kung fu practitioners, practitioners of Kalari Payat, or anything else. There is always an art of living associated with the martial art, and it's never isolated. It goes with the environment, the way we hold ourselves upright every day. Ladja is an art of total combat because it includes wrestling. It also includes the fists, the feet, You have punches using the knees, the elbows. You can bite. You can hold on to the private parts. And there's also a spiritual dimension, a knowledge of plants, of water, the sea's bays, rivers. It's something really very complete, but which is simply a reflection of most traditional African combat. The musical aspect is very important. We actually have the feeling that we're dancing. If we just did that, then it's dancing. Yes, it is, it's dancing. Except it's a dance that serves combat. So you could call it a combat dance, but you could also simply call it a rhythmic combat. So then, it's a question of taking a position, it's a vision of things. However, the elders who practice will tell you that there is no useless movement, because all movement, even when it seems right, like this, or when it seems to be a dance movement, is always an attitude that makes you ready for combat and responds to a situation. The basis of Ladja is our African culture. It's true that we have always suffered from what today is called crossbreeding, but deep down, fundamentally, it's the African culture that drives us, and we will continue to fight for that to be recognized, even if many would like to make us forget what we are.
The island of flowers, or Martinique, is an invitation to dream. There are secret agonies that have, for a little more than 3 centuries, churned within its land. But it has faced up to them without complaint, even if it does not forget. A voyage to this island might be a one-way only, because once you've arrived, it's not so sure you'll ever want to leave.